Hello and welcome back to another video here on Sega Saturn Month. Yes, we are doing Sega Saturn Month. We're still doing it. Even after 4 videos... Yeah, 4 videos already. Crikey. Well, this time around, this one was actually a request. Can't quite remember the fella's name, so apologies ahead of time. But this week I'm talking about just the Panzer Dragoon games on the Sega Saturn, kind of my experiences with them, and my stories, that sort of thing. So, for me, a big part of collecting for the Saturn, representing Sonic today, sorry, not Panzer Dragoon. I don't own a Panzer Dragoon yet, very depressing. But a big part of getting a Sega Saturn for me was actually Panzer Dragoon. There was Panzer Dragoon as a series, kind of starting with, obviously, Saga. Saga was immediately on my list, but the first one I actually got them not in order. I didn't get them in order, but the first one I did get was 1. I quite like 1. I don't know if I prefer it over Y, because I don't. I don't prefer it over Y, but for a game you can beat in about an hour, yeah, it's really solid. It's basically, Panzer Dragoon as a whole is just kind of Sega's answer to Star Fox by Nintendo. Kind of not necessarily starting around the same time. I think Star Fox predates Panzer Dragoon by quite a margin, but for launching the Saturn, Sega decided, hey, we're not going to have any of our established properties straight off the bat. What we want to do is we want to launch this console with a bunch of new games, a bunch of new properties that we can kind of milk and kind of define the Saturn as a viable games console. Now, that had middling results, that had debatable results, and eventually you started seeing installments of franchises like Shining Force and, well, Shining in general. There's about 3 Shining games, I think, on the Saturn, and only 1 is worth playing. No, I know. But, yeah, you had a lot of games that weren't really great, and you had a bunch of games that were. And Panzer Dragoon was kind of born of this. It was born of that little initiative. The guy's name escapes me, but he went on to make Phantom Dust, The Red Star, and I think he was working on something else recently. I can't remember. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, very solid game. Very solid game. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot to talk about outside the fact that apparently it's compatible with the Virtuous Stick. I bear that in mind. I don't have a Virtuous Stick. I have been debating on buying the Flight Stick for a while, but that's unfortunately a wee bit expensive. It's a wee bit expensive. I think it's like a couple hundred at the moment, which is a little bit crazy. I don't think either that Panzer Dragoon's Y actually supports it, but yeah, I think that Flight Stick is kind of just reserved for Panzer Dragoon Saga. That being said, I did get Saga next. So this was the main game I wanted a Saturn for. This, and I've played it maybe twice, because I don't want to ruin it. Unfortunately, that's actually why I bought the Polymega, so I can install this bad boy and actually give it a proper playthrough without breaking the discs, because this is very expensive nowadays. Panzer Dragoon Saga is hideously expensive. So what happened was I asked my mum for this off of Amazon. Back in the day when you could actually find games on Amazon that weren't just new. And Panzer Dragoon was on there for 60 quid. It was 60 quid. We were like, oh my god, that's crazy cheap. Because I'd previously seen it on there for about 80. Which, I know, what a bloody novelty back in the day instead of being nearly £1,000. But yeah, so we dropped the 60 quid. We wait for ages. Shows up, it's just the manual. Some asshole was selling just the manual on Amazon for 60 quid. Now, we talked to him about it. He was like, yeah, I contacted you like multiple times about it. You didn't respond, so I sent it out anyway. So, kind of on us. I had to wait, I think it was a year. It was a year. I had Panzer Dragoon Saga's manual sat there for an entire year. After, bearing in mind, I did give my mum that 60 quid. Because I was like, oh, God. She can't just give me a manual. There's 60 quid for the manual, and away we go. I still got that. It's in here. That other manual is in here. And about a year later, we were like, right, okay, I found it again, and it's 140 this time around. So, all in all, I spent about, well, I didn't spend, but we collectively spent about 200 quid on Panzer Dragoon Saga, and you know what? It was so worth it. It was so worth it. Genuinely excellent RPG. It's only about 20 hours long, which isn't crazy long for an RPG, and quite frankly, good, because JRPGs are not my cup of tea. Never been able to get into them. Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest? Yeah, Dragon Quest. No. Dragon Warriors? Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest, couldn't get into. Yeah, just lots of classic JRPG series that I just really, really cannot get on board with. I can't stand menu-based combat. I think it's dreadful. There's no impact. It's basically adding a middleman in between button prompts for doing something. But Saga is actually very playable. I do need to play it again. It has probably been a couple years since I last put that in the console. And you know what? I think I probably have lost all my save data. So plan is, pop the Polymega out. Let me just grab that, actually. Come here, you pain in the bum. Come on. That's what happens when I'm unprepared for a video. Always good. But yeah, gonna pop it in here, probably in the coming week. Might play some other games on it as well, actually, because I think this is the Mega Drive front. Yes, it is. So that's the Mega Drive part. Plan is pop it in the Polymega, install it, and we'll go on from there. We'll play it from there. Because, yeah, that's a big part of why I got this bloody thing in the first place. It was to play Panzer Dragoon Saga without breaking the discs. But that wasn't the last Panzer Dragoon game I got on the Saturn. That would be Zwei. I quite like Zwei. It's very different to its predecessor. So Panzer Dragoon 1, very linear, almost hideously linear. Only an hour long. Very, 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 very little replay value in this. It's a big part of why Panzer Dragoon Remake, which is the recent remake of this one from about 4 years ago, just kind of lacks something. Like, it's very indicative of the game itself. You can beat that game in an hour, easily. Zwei, on the other hand, way more replayable. Yeah. Multiple routes, tons of secrets, and the dragon evolves. So you start from like this little bugger running along the ground, then he evolves into this kind of thing, and then I think that's the final one. Again, I haven't played through Zwei all the way, well, at least multiple times. I've played it a few times. But, yeah. Good, solid game. Panzer Dragoon's always had a bit of a love, been a bit of a love thing for me. I'm a big fan of its lore. So there was a website that back in the day was called Will of the Ancients. It's now called Panzer Dragoon Legacy. They had a wiki, or they have a wiki, sorry. They have a wiki on there that just kind of details everything about these games, from Panzer Dragoon 2, 1, Saga, even Mini, Auto on the original Xbox. I think it covers a little bit about Remake, though there's not a colossal amount in there. But yeah, I mean, the Saturn was really the birthplace of this entire franchise. I don't own every game. I think, no, I haven't got Mini, because Mini is like 400 quid for a really crappy remake of Panzer Dragoon. That is very, very, very expensive. And I don't own, what was it? There was a game I didn't know. Oh yeah, the Panzer Dragoon game for the original Tiger R-Zone. Yeah, no. If you know who Tiger are, they make those crappy LCD, or they made those crappy LCD games that are just awful. They are awful. They're just borderline unplayable. They made one for Panzer Dragoon in general. Sega was like, oh yeah, we'll license that out. That's fine. We need money. And then it's like, oh no, it's bad. And it is. It's terrible. It's just awful. I've seen some gameplay footage. It's just not very good. We had a bit of a resurgence, though, 4 years ago, for Panzer Dragoon. We got a remake of this one. Well, I say this one. It was more like the PC port. But Forever Entertainment decided, hey, we're gonna pick up the slack and we're gonna remake 1 and Zwei. And I was like, great, brilliant, fantastic. Yeah, remake's fine. Remake of 1 is fine. Panzer Dragoon 1 remake, or Remake 1, is okay. It's not amazing. I think the biggest part of it is it kind of lacks that sort of ethereal nature. The music's still there. It's very pretty, in a way. It does look like something that came out maybe 10 years ago. But, yeah, it's pretty. And that's really all I can say about it. Remake is just merely pretty. It's not as good as the original. It has some additional bits and some additional bells and whistles, but it really is lacking any kind of replayability. Again, a game you can. I beat that game in an hour. I sat down and I finished it, and I went, "Oh, okay, it's as short as the first one," and that's fine. It's why I'm more excited about Zwei remake, because I like Panzer Dragoon 2. I like Panzer Dragoon 1, it's probably my favourite one. But I want I hate to say it, better looking. I want a better looking version of Zwei, and I know that's going to be horribly controversial. But yeah, I mean, just, this had multiple routes. The Dragon Evolution system's very cool. It had more of a story that 1 doesn't really have, and then Saga came along and went, hi, I've got an even bigger story. But I'm an RPG, so, you know. Then we got Orta. Orta was the last game in the franchise. Which sucks, because I like Orta. I bought that game for about £3. Goodness. 14 years ago. Nearly 15, which is absolutely insane. Yeah, £3. Which is not a lot. It's like $2. If you're in America while watching this, which, hello, if you are. How you doing? But yeah, that was it. That was it for Panzer Dragoon for years. I went out my way to collect as much as I could for Panzer Dragoon in general. Obviously, the 3 Saturn games. I picked up, what else have I picked up? Remake. I picked up the PS2 version of Panzer Dragoon 1. So this got ported. Well, they made a PC version of this. Looks really good. And then they re-released it as part of what was called the Sega Ages collection. And yeah, that's very playable. Very playable. Unfortunately, it's all in Japanese. So, yay. Not great. I am going to, at some point, probably pick up the Panzer Dragoon 1 and 2 collection that Japan had. So both games released physically in Japan together, which is very cool. And then Panzer Dragoon Saga was actually known as Azel Panzer Dragoon, or Panzer Dragoon Azel, or something like that. No, that was it. Azel Panzer Dragoon RPG. So Azel is that character there. She's a drone, and a drone is an artificial life form created to manipulate the Ancients' technology. So the Ancients are this long-forgotten race of humans, basically wiped themselves out as a result of the weapons that they were utilising. I know there's more in-depth lore than this, but I can't remember all of it off the top of my head. And then there's like 2 different factions, which were technology preservation, technology destruction. Technology destruction largely won out, I believe, but technological preservation, I think, they were the guys who were behind the dragons, and the dragons pop up every now and then, pick a rider, do something beneficial, I suppose, and then they disappear again. They just don't come back, which is okay. The whole world is controlled by like this sort of pseudo reclamation AI, and then, yeah, Azel falls in love with Edge, which is this guy here. Then there's a bit of meta gameplay. So the meta gameplay is more along the lines of you pick your name. that name is not Edge's name. That name is your name, and you're called what's called the Divine Visitor. So, in-game, the player is viewed as a outside entity, bringing Edge back to life and kind of piloting his body, which is kind of horrifying. He's still alive, but you're the one controlling him. And he and Nazelle fall in love. He goes missing. She then follows, which is kind of sad, actually. It's kind of a depressing sense. And then their child, who is, her name's Orta. Yeah, I think her name is actually Orta. In Panzer Dragoon Orta. Yeah, she's... Yeah, it's been a while since I've had a Panzer Dragoon Orta. You can tell. She's their daughter, and then... Yeah. All in all, I love this series. It's probably one of my favourites in terms of background lore. Definitely some of my favourite rail shooters of all time. I'm growing to like rail shooters more. I mean, I bought Air Twister recently, which I can't see. Yeah, I bought that about 6 months ago. Weird game. But I get Panzer Dragoon vibes from it. Less so the flying elephants and swan and giant ass swans, but certainly the world is quite weird, and I like that. I don't know. The art style is probably the most drawing thing about Panzer Dragoon, I think, for a lot of people, as well as it's really freaking good music. Its music is really freaking good. Yeah. So that's it for another week. I think that's me talking about Panzer Dragoon again. I did a lot of talking about Panzer Dragoon in my other Panzer Dragoon collection video. There we go. Said it too many times. If you want to check that out, that'd be great. Stick around for next week, which is the final week of Sega Saturn Month, where we'll be talking about all the racing games that I have for the Saturn, because it's one of those consoles where I just simply buy racing games for. Very similar to the N64, actually. A lot of racing games on those systems, and quite frankly, I don't play racing games that much. So yeah, that's it for another week. I will see you guys next time.